Well, hey, everybody. My name's Scott, and this is my buddy Nathan. And if you're new to these videos, welcome. If you have been following along, great to have you back. We choose relevant books that either Nathan has read or I've read, and then we talk about those books and we talk about them in light of recovery. Primarily because we work in the recovery ministry here at Christ Community Church. We oversee a ministry here called Celebrate Recovery, and we meet on Monday nights, almost every Monday night at 7 p.m. and you are welcome anytime. With that said, today we are picking up with chapter 7 from the book Leading with Emotional Courage. It's by author Peter Bregman. And there are 4 elements in this book. And our discussion today is under element 1, build or building your confidence. And so today we're going to move into part 2, specifically become who you want to be. So Nathan, why don't I throw it to you? I know in chapter 7, he's talking about finding clarity. So anything that stood out to you from this chapter?
Says counterintuitively, I'm more productive, because he says I've slowed down enough to think about what needs to get done.
Nathan, can I stop you?
Yeah.
You froze there for a while. You froze there for a while, and you were talking, and I was looking at my notes, and I thought you weren't talking at all, and then I looked up, and the screen was frozen.
Man.
So I'm guessing your first 1 or 2 sentences were lost.
Okay.
Sorry. Well,
right.
You can edit, right? Just pick up where you started.
I can. So let's keep going. All right. So clarity, finding your one big theme towards the end of the chapter. He says, counterintuitively, I'm more productive. This is a great line, one that people I think would remember well, because he's saying, I slowed down, and it wasn't just slowing down to be slow. It was being intentional to not let things be so complex, to not let yourself keep doing things that are not mattering the most. I actually know of another line in Atomic Habits by James Clear, a great book. He says one of the greatest forms of optimization is simplification, meaning if you can eliminate things, you can actually optimize your time, you can optimize your work, because a lot of people want to feel like they're being successful in what they're doing, and so they will make themselves more busy because they're equating busyness with success, and that's just not true, right? In fact, there are studies actually being done in Europe and things about the 4-day work week, and they find that people are actually more productive in a 4-day work week because they're trying to optimize their time instead of they're showing up and maybe they get distracted and they watch some Facebook videos or YouTube or something, or they're messaging friends. Whereas when you're feeling the need to pressure the time, make it most effective, you need to eliminate a lot of the complexities. But you said this was your word for the year as well, or maybe just your theme?
Yes, it was my phrase. So when I heard somebody else talking about it, that was awesome. Bregman encourages, he said, instead of coming up with a comprehensive plan, or really plans to address this area and that area and address my eating, address my exercise, all very important things, address my relationships. He says the challenge when we have so similar to what you're just saying, so many plans, he said often we find that we are less effective.
Right.
Just like the 4-day work week. And so his approach is to find a theme that if you applied that theme to your life, let's say this year, you would,
Right.
it would be addressing all of those areas. So let me give you an example. Well, his example is slow down. So it's actually a phrase, slow down. That was his theme when he was writing this book, which happens to be saying two words that mean a lot to me. My brain goes fast, and here, there, and everywhere. And that phrase, I'm trying to live that out. Whether it's slowing down my breathing, slowing down, becoming more aware, slowing down in prayer, slowing down my thought process, slow down. So that one theme he found immediately helped his clarity, it helped his confidence, it helped him become who he was, and it helped him to be more effective.
Yeah.
So I really
Yeah.
appreciated this chapter. It meant a lot to me, and I think it does relate to recovery because we encourage, in fact, my group of men, what we're doing a step study right now, and we're in the heart of it. It's
Right.
Doing a personal inventory. And in order to do a personal inventory, you really have to slow down and reflect on how you got to where you are, or how we got to where we are. And so slowing down, but that may not be, he gives a counterexample. Your theme may be speed up.
Right.
There could be any theme, but it's what matters to you, and what, if you applied that one theme, would make a difference in all the areas that you want to see change.
Yeah. The goal is to simplify. The goal is to break down the complexities,
That's right.
the extras that we add on that are sometimes just comforts, or distractions to distract us from the very first sentence in the book, which is, if you're willing to feel anything, you can do anything. So, but
Excellent.
we're moving into chapter 8, become more of who you are. You're already pretty amazing, Scott.
Well, I thank you. As are you. Yeah, I really like this. I feel like in this chapter, we are now moving into one of your areas of expertise. Who are we already? I would put some language to it. What are my strengths? And he starts this chapter by talking about a letter he received, and when he opened it up and he started to read it, it was actually a letter that he had written. I don't know how much in the past, but he had written to himself. And the letter was addressing areas like, what am I grateful for, and where can I improve?
Yeah.
And as I understand it, the summary of this is the things that you are grateful for, the things that motivate you, you're probably already doing them in some areas. You're probably doing them successfully in some areas. So he says sometimes we try and change in areas of that we're not grateful for, or areas, even areas of weakness. And so this whole chapter reminded me a lot of when I was first introduced to strengths by an author and a speaker named Marcus Buckingham, who wrote a book called Go Put Your Strengths to Work. And in short, what are those things that bring you joy? And are we spending as much time as possible? Can't do it all the time, but are we spending as much time as possible in those areas that bring us joy, the areas of our strengths?
Right. And it is a fascinating subject of even how to overcome bad habits, or how to overcome things that are holding us back, because a lot of times we are really just trying to focus on our weakness. We're trying to build ourselves to overcome a weakness by focusing on a weakness, and it just doesn't work. And so I love the aspect of saying, remember, he says, we need to remember who we are over and over. Remember that, even if it's scripture, remember that you're a child of God. Remember that you are abiding in God and God is everything. And so you can win. Remember that Holy Spirit is working in you to overcome. Remember that he puts strengths in you, and you can really just increase the amount of joy in expressing those strengths and expressing those elements that God put in you, so you can increase the amount of joy in your life. And it's kind of, it's not like you are naive or you're ignoring things that you're trying to overcome. It's just that you're focusing on the things that will help you overcome, rather than focusing on the thing that you're trying to overcome itself. And I just think it's a great way to say, become more of who you are. God has a plan. And even though, there has been some brokenness and there's been some heartache, crisis, bad habits, they can still be used intentionally, just like from, man's search for meaning, in God's hands. But we have to sometimes move in that direction. Our story is moving more into what God has planned for us than what we are planning out ourselves. And oftentimes our plans are filled with, I want to overcome this. And it starts to really direct our identity that we are that thing, rather than what God says. So it's just a powerful motivator to change what we're mentally and emotionally focusing on.
Yep. So well
Yeah.
said. And he ends that chapter by saying, you are already the person you aspire to be. With
Yeah.
focus, you can build on that.
Yeah.
One of my professors used to say it this way. He was saying it in the context of what we would commonly call spiritual giftedness. Like I think in the New Testament of 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, or Ephesians 4, or Romans 12, or 1 Peter 4. Every believer has been given a particular gift, and we need to identify that gift and primarily live out of that gift. It wouldn't make sense if I thought, wow, God's really given me the gift to teach or of encouragement, and then actively neglected that gift. So my professor would say, we want to, similarly to what Bregman's saying, from a different point of view, my professor said, we want to become the person that God has created us to be.
Right.
So then that
so how
rolls
do
us
we
into,
do that?
Well,
Sorry.
We need to roll in then, that will roll us in to answer that question into chapter 9.
Yeah.
Which is staying focused. And this is really interesting. The subtitle here for chapter 9 is, you need to practice being your future self. And he starts by talking about one of his clients, who I don't know if it's his real name, but Sanjay, he was talking to his client Sanjay and discussing compensation conversations, kind of what he called top of the mind, like his tyranny of the urgent, if you will, conversation that he's wants to talk to his coach. Would he be a life coach to this client?
Yes, he is. Peter Bregman is actually coaching and consulting business.
Okay. So he says, Sanjay's telling him, he's talking about these compensation conversations. And then finally Bregman stops him and basically says, I know this is important to you, but I want to go deeper. And then he says to him, I know you don't want me just to be helpful. You want me to be transformational. And in short, he says to his client, you're kind of just paying attention to the present, the tyranny of the urgent, but you're not paying attention to the future and to the person that you really want to become.
Right. And I start a line as well, because it's hard to do. I mean, you say that you want to spend time practicing being your future self, and you can't always focus on the urgent. He says, if you want to be productive, you need to spend time doing things that feel ridiculously unproductive. It's an interesting line, because I mean, in one of our chapters, we just said, well, reduce the complexity, do one theme. But here he's saying, okay, but you do need to practice being your future self. So, you know, if someone, I'll think of this was the first one that comes to mind, because I took a speech class and it's very fascinating. But if you want to work on your future self and you feel like you're supposed to be doing a lot more speaking engagements, you need to do the ridiculously unproductive feeling, which is, I need to stand in my bedroom, look at the wall, and practice speaking. I need to literally practice tone and pitch and timing and things like that all feel unproductive, because you're not in front of an audience. You're practicing on yourself. And we don't give a lot of credit to working on ourselves, because we're thinking, well, I'm busy. I don't have time to work on myself. And he does say, though, yeah, but we want transformation. That's really what this is about, staying focused on the transformation. And I think that is a really, I mean, he doesn't say stay focused on transformation, but in there you can see that that's what he's trying to help people discover, is when you're working on your future self, you're assuming an identity about yourself that isn't fully yet. You know, and the one that comes to mind, of course, is when Jesus is like, hey, Peter, you're the rock, right? Now, he wasn't a rock in the beginning, but he practiced that. He assumed it, and maybe that's part of, you know, what eventually gave him the belief system to step out on the water, or the belief system to be bold when he's standing in front of the Pharisees. He's practicing his future self until he became that person that he realized Jesus spoke over him, that you know, that description. And that same goes for us too. You know, Jesus doesn't call us by our broken names. He calls us by the things that we truly are, and in as an invitation, and really as a way to see that, you know what, this is really me. This is actually my identity. And it's a powerful, it's very powerful when it comes to assuming that you are able to get out of, you know, when you're feeling stuck, and you're able to get out of whichever thing you feel is holding you back.
Yep. He makes the distinction between being busy, because when we're busy, we can feel like we're productive.
Mm-hmm.
But he argues that being busy is not the same as being productive. And so practically, he says, ask these two questions. Who do I want to be? And where do I want to go?
Yeah.
And then, as you were saying, we need to spend time, even when there's no immediate return. And like you said, even if they feel ridiculously unproductive, we need to spend time on what it would take to be that person that you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, he says, if you just pay attention to the present, you'll stay stuck. But what about those things that you need to do to be the person that you want to become? How do we practice those? And that's where stepping away from the tyranny of the urgent, even if there are some balls that drop, is worth it in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So he ends by saying it's important that we invest our energy wisely. If we're always investing in the tyranny of the urgent, the things that have to get done, then we're still going to have these dreams that we want to be, who we want to be, what we want to do, where we want to go in the future. But if we stay in the tyranny of the urgent all the time, then we won't get to where we really want to go. So that's why, again, the whole premise of this chapter 9 is staying focused, practice being your future self.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff.
Yeah. Really good.
Great book. I'm really enjoying it. Thanks for recommending it. I would recommend to our listeners picking it up. Again, the author is Peter Bregman, Leading with Emotional Courage. And if you need a recovery meeting to attend, if you have any hurt, habit, or hang up, and who doesn't, we'd love to see you here at Christ Community on a future Monday night. But thanks for joining us for this session, and we will see you again next time.
All right, guys. See you next time.